Welcome back, YouTube. Got another episode of the Daily Insight today. This one's about world building and some things that I was thinking about while I was driving back from a meeting today. So, one thing in particular, I'm doing all these things that we're talking about every day. We're posting about it, and it's brainstorming. It's making things tangible from your creative atmosphere around your head. And so, I'm taking scenes, I'm building scenes and little voice memos, just little snippets that I see in something in life, and I'll just make a note of it in terms of a story that I'm building or a character. And in fact, for a short film and short story that we're doing, we're actually doing the Blake Snyder method for that. So we have the 4 acts, and we're placing all the scenes on the plot because we already have the whole story, but now we're just going to organize it. So I'm thinking right now about world building and the importance of it, because, well, okay, first off, even to begin with it, to start with world building, you have to be able to take something, take something that you're working on that's small and create a bigger universe for it to exist in. And that takes a certain amount of effort for you to, just let things flow out of you. Just don't be so attached to it being perfect. Just make that little scene perfect, and then in terms of this one, I have a short story that, I was like, I had this big movie for it, but, let's work on one little scene and knowing that I have a bigger place to take it, And that's kind of where I want to mainly inspire you guys today about, is that, let some of your things flow and think about an overall character arc or an overall universe that this thing could exist in, For instance, I'm building this universe about something that has to do about a little bit about the relationships between bosses and employees. And there's certain archetypes that are being thrown at you from a whole bunch of different people's experiences, and so what I've created there is like a whole bunch of different characters and scenarios, and that's just from having one little story, you can create this whole little thing that you can go back from, or, even if you just wrote an essay or a short story about someone, it could be one of the characters that is introduced in there could have the first film idea that you come up with, and you've already got this good backstory, you've already got this development, so they're already existing in this place, and you're just pretty much gathering a peek in and just filling in the dialogue, so definitely that's a practice that a lot of people have been doing. George Lucas, for instance, with Star Wars, he had so much written about little intricacies of the different solar system, planets, and races and languages, and spirituality and mythos and origin stories, and there's this whole political dynamic out there, and all of that, so that when you do just want to tell a little story about a small boy growing up on Tatooine who, becomes this hybrid balance of good and evil Jedi character, that's an archetypal sort of story, you can really draw in everything that kind of mirrors society, because you've created this big society already, and that's just one example. Another person who's really good at that I admire is Kevin Smith, with the Clerks and Mallrats and Jay and Silent Bob and Chasing Amy, and all of these kind of existing in these cool little, this little universe of what a suburban East Coast metropolitan kind of experience is like. That's pretty cool, and you can do that with everything, everything that exists. Children's stories are really good at that. Harry Potter creates this whole history of the characters and the universe, and the different schools of being a wizard. And then Lord of the Rings is another example, and we see this in Dungeons and Dragons. I think that that's a really good skill to work on your storytelling ability and your improv, because you are giving big backstories to these characters that you're creating, and hand in hand with some of the lore from the realms, and the additions and the class structure. And yeah, it could get pretty long-winded about that, but you get the picture. Video games do it too. Super Mario, that's a world. And then what you start to see is that the world is really like a certain type of brand of entertainment. The Walking Dead is a certain brand of entertainment. What's another one of these? Oh, the Marvel Universe, come on. There's so much crossover and potential for different characters to be broken into or talked about. And think about the source that they're pulling from, which is like 75 years of comic books, approximately. Don't quote me for that number, maybe more, but countless. And all of these people are turning out stories every week, with different characters, having a villain, having a conflict, resolving it, leaving it at a cliffhanger for next week. So they knew their Marvel is pulling from people that knew how to tell stories to keep people coming back. And that is essentially all of stories. Like a lot of our media is based on storytelling. At the core of anything that somebody likes about something, it has to do with some part of that and a relatability. Your favorite musicians, it's less about the chords and the note, but more of the story as to either how you found that musician or the story of what that musician says that you identify with. So much world building. I could talk probably in hours about it. But I also want to kind of show you, and you'll see examples and some things that I've released and that are going to be released. And we can all do this together, and everybody can have different worlds, and everybody can, kind of profit off of these, because this is kind of an infinite resource that we have, being able to use our imagination to create entertainment and value and hooks and characters and relatability. Like, you're never going to run out of, there's never going to be no stories around for you to mine and refine and keep plotting out. It's just doing the work of plotting it out, planning it, doing the due diligence, and getting feedback and relating to people, and then getting out there to experience more things that people have that want to be heard, that you maybe didn't think about, but once you go out and experience, you learn that there's a big market of people going through something that you didn't know about. So, so be in the world to build the world, and the world building is definitely a resourceful practice that a lot of writers are always using. Goosebumps, R.L. Stein, like I said, kids authors, Roald Dahl, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Charlie and the Glass Elevator, all of these things, The Simpsons, Friends, Family Guy, of course. What else is, I feel like there's a few that are really, really good that I'm missing out on, but, Game of Thrones, right? There's people that know more about the politics in the Game of Thrones universe than they do their own country. I swear, because it's that vast, and that's why George R.R. Martin can demand that sort of fee and entertainment, because he's somebody that's put thought into that world building process, that other minds can go and visit it and come back later, and there's some stability, more stability probably than the real world. There's some structure, There's some conflict, there's some mystique, some mystery, and there's a driving force behind it. And that's interesting for minds to consume, you know. Kendrick Lamar, Childish Gambino. Look at the world building and stories that they're doing, you know, and Childish with the show Atlanta, and his music, you know, he's got a whole new way of telling stories, you know. So that's all for today, but definitely chew on that for a bit. Any questions or things you want to talk about, go to the Patreon, email 24creative@gmail.com. Like and subscribe, and stay tuned. We'll have more for you.